can go ahead and get started. And I see that Nalima hopped on, and she's going to kick us off this morning. So I will pass it along to her.
Thank you, Margaret. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're very excited to be able to convene everyone together this morning and to share some of the work that the Erase campaign has been engaged in, along with all our other community partners. And I think the webinar today is pretty straightforward. One of the things that we wanted to do this morning is to share a little bit of the erase work, what we've been doing throughout this year, but we also wanted to invite some of our partners at the municipal level, county, city level, to really share with us some important information about how they're implementing and using some of the fundings for LAHA and SAHA, which is an important component for affordable housing programs. So that is the gist of our conversation today. And so without further ado, I will hand it over to our facilitator for today, Margaret, to lead us in this conversation and to introduce our panelists. And we just want to thank them so much for making themselves available and coming to share their time and the important information with us.
Well, good morning, everyone. So thank you for joining us this morning. Just for a little bit of background on folks, the Minnesota Erase campaign was founded in 2021, really with the goal of ending rental arrears and stopping evictions, working with organizations and individuals to achieve this goal. And we've really prioritized this idea of state advocacy for emergency rental assistance at a level that meets the needs of the state. So over the years, we've managed to sort of infuse the system, particularly FHPAP, with more resources, including, most importantly, in 2023, where $95 million in one-time appropriations were put into FHPAP. But FHPAP wasn't the sort of the only program that we and so many other partners advocated for. In 2023, the Minnesota legislature approved two really important programs when you think about resources for affordable housing and the ability to drive those resources at the very local level. And those were LAHA, which is the Local Affordable Housing Aid Program, which was funded through a quarter-cent metro sales tax for use in the 7-county metro area. And then statewide, the SAHA program, which was funded through appropriations. So through these two programs, cities and counties had the discretion to spend funds on a broad range of affordable housing programs. So this included anything from development to rehab to, really important for our discussion, emergency rental assistance. And one of the things that the Erase campaign has been doing, and some of you may have seen that Minnesota Housing Partnership, on behalf of the Minnesota Erase campaign, reached out to a bunch of local jurisdictions to really explore how are cities and counties using these funds, why did they make the decisions that they made, and we received survey responses from 9 counties and 6 cities, including jurisdictions in both the metro area and in greater Minnesota. So after the program, we're going to be able to share those survey results with folks to really get a picture of how people are utilizing these funds. But today, what we'd like to do is have a few people from some of these local jurisdictions present information about how they're utilizing these funds. So a snapshot of how the funds are allocated, really like how does that fit in with the needs of local communities and why they made the decisions that they made. So we're going to have some short presentations. And then afterwards, we're going to have some time for some questions and answers. So I've got a few questions, and then we would also encourage people to put questions that they have in the chat as well, too. And so we have today three folks who are going to be presenting with information from Brooklyn Center, from uh, Olmsted County, and from Dakota County. So to kick things off, we're going to start with John from Brooklyn Center to share a little bit about what they've been doing. John, are you ready and raring to go? Do we have John on? Oh,
I don't
okay.
see John, so why don't you?
So,
I will
we'll,
reach out. I'll see if I can reach out to him.
okay, we'll change the order. I guess up next, we have David Dunn from Olmsted County to share a little bit about the work that they're doing.
Yeah, good morning, Margaret and everyone, and thank you for the invitation to be on here. I will share my screen and there we go. Always a challenge to make sure that when you do the screen share, that you make sure and get it done the right way. So hopefully, can you all see the screen and not like some either my, questions or whatever else?
We can see your screen.
All right, perfect. So again, I thank you for the warm welcome. My name is Dave Dunn. I'm the Housing and Planning Director for Olmsted County. And then as part of that, I serve as the Executive Director of the Olmsted County HRA. And I bring those things all together because I do think it helps as we talk about the issue of housing and the different complexities and the different partners, kind of some of the things we found from some of the unique things that we're doing here in Olmsted County as far as structure goes. So the statewide affordable housing aid that Olmsted County received, you can see the numbers down there for 23 and 24, it was 241,000. And then in 25, it dropped down to $105,000. And so for us, trying to figure out how to make the best investment of these funds, obviously, it is an important part of the overall funding continuum, but it is not the majority of funding in any of our communities. But we do appreciate the opportunity to have some flexible funding from the state in order to address innovative and unique ideas that we have. And I think as we created our strategies around how to utilize these funds, you'll see that we've done some very different things. And that's why I think the flexibility of the statewide affordable housing aid is so important and why it's such a great tool to use in all 87 of our counties and all of the cities that receive it as well. The first project that we utilized for our statewide affordable housing aid was a family shelter. So prior to really in March of this year, prior to that, Olmsted County and Rochester only had two family shelter beds available. There's a significant need in the community. We've been really working with our partners in Rochester Public Schools and Three Rivers Community Action Agency and across the community to figure out how do we address family homelessness and how do we end family homelessness. And so we worked with Family Promise Rochester, a local nonprofit, to really ramp up their capacity and to ramp up their organization and for the county to use the statewide affordable housing aid funds to assist in this, which is the Promise House. It was a facility that was a former group residential home. As times changed, the needs changed, and so it came on the market in early 2023. The county was able to acquire the property, use the SAHA funding to renovate the property, and so in March of this year, we were able to launch and have an actual grand opening celebration, and it's wonderful to see the number of families now who are in there day in and day out, people able to walk around the building, families that are there, and most importantly, work toward no kids should sleep in cars. And I think that's something that every Minnesotan can agree to. And so for us, being able to utilize the funding to help make that happen is extraordinarily important. So this was a need that we identified locally. Again, we didn't have the family beds that maybe we need. And so this will help us as we look at meeting those needs in the future. So I think, again, when I talk about the statewide affordable housing aid, that flexibility, I think, is just so wonderful in the tool to say, hey, one of the pressing issues right now in our community for us was family shelter, and we could help make and create a facility that creates family shelter and transitional housing. So again, it's a wonderful project. I'm extraordinarily proud of the work of our team and the Family Promise team and everyone else who helped put this together. And it was a great use of the first 2 years of our statewide affordable housing aid. We went in a very different direction for our 2025 allocation. And so what we did is we looked across the continuum, and another significant need that we have is the creation of what I would consider workforce home ownership opportunities. So as part of a larger project, we used the statewide affordable housing aid to create a 0% interest loan to Bigelow Homes, which is the largest builder in Southeast Minnesota. They are able to take the statewide affordable housing aid as a 0% interest construction loan. And what we've done is we've blended that with some other money as well, but made it where they can do a 0% construction loan. So they don't have to worry about carrying the risk of building these homes. All of these homes will be sold for under $350,000. Right now, when we last looked, the lowest new construction home in Olmsted County was getting close to $500,000. It was on the market today. So this is significantly lower cost and therefore more affordable. And so for us, again, trying to make this happen. We're also trying to do some other things because we know that it's one thing for us in Olmsted County to be able to try a different project and try something else and to use this pot of funds. But what we really want to do is something that we can replicate across the state of Minnesota. We can highlight the needs of workforce housing in this project. And one of the things that we found was that builders are really good at building, but it's the other stuff in the system that really that makes it harder. And so by minimizing the builder risk, we can make that project happen. We can build, and hopefully we can recycle that funding. And in this case, what we're really trying to do is assist the private market in creating a workforce housing product that our communities desperately need. And so this is just to give you an idea of one of those homes. This was, you can see, from August of this year. You can see the finishes, and this one is, I think, one of the first ones that was finished and kind of moving forward. These homes have definitely been they've been a hot commodity. They have not been sold yet, but this is coming soon, we believe. And so then what we really wanted, again, for us, it's not just about maybe doing a small project or something else, because we know that housing issues are significant, not just across the state of Minnesota, but across the country. And so what we're trying to do is do some of these innovative ideas and test them out. And hopefully we can test these ideas, concepts out. And if they're successful, we can replicate them, not just more here locally, statewide, and ultimately, hopefully, we can share some of our success stories and help others as they go along this journey as well. So what we wanted to do with this project is kind of testing, can we build a home for under $300,000? And really what we found is the short answer is that, the construction cost is $240 on these homes. And that is it's two different building styles. So one is a slab on grade and the other is a split. The split has an unfinished basement. So the finishes are about 2 bedrooms and 1.5 to 2 baths in each house, allowing for potential down the road, at least in the split level model, of some finishes and allowing the home buyer to finish the basement out themselves and to build some equity. The second question was, is there a market for the homes with the fewer amenities? Right now, we think that the answer to that is yes. These homes have not been, they're being completed as we speak. There has been significant interest, but what we're seeing is we anticipate the first homes to be sold here within the next few weeks. And then again, some other questions that we've asked ourselves as we look at this. So are there economies of scale when you build multiple homes? So can you get kind of a price point reduction when you build more than one at a time? And the answer is yes. And it's really for two reasons. One, there is a cost savings. So buying in bulk, in this case, I think it was 8 homes at once, can get you about a 5% savings according to our builder, which again, when you're talking about things that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, that does add up. And more importantly, it allows the number of homes built at one time to increase. The lenders are really skittish when it comes to housing. And so for a builder to get a loan, take out that loan, and then pay that loan back when the home sells, that's a significant risk for a lender. And so the lender may only allow for 1 or 2 homes to be built at a time. And by using the statewide affordable housing aid as kind of a tool in that tool belt, what we were able to do is say, let's build 8 houses at once. Let's get those cost savings. Let's get those price savings. And then we can worry about the risk with that statewide affordable housing aid to kind of help back that. How long does it take to build homes? So that was another thing we were looking to see, is that we weren't sure if the homes would, how long does it take to build a house? And what we found was that it was 84 days for the first building permit to the first certificate of occupancy. So as we're looking at this project and kind of learning more as we go on, it takes, if you set it up right, it takes about 90 days from the actual building permit to this completion of building a home. And as we think about that from other projects that we've all worked on, how can we do more homes faster is so important. So that was one of the interesting things we learned. And then again, as we start to see these homes being sold, we want to see if building homes for seniors and people with disabilities, if that's going to be effective, or who are going to be some of our target markets. And frankly, that's inconclusive yet, just because we haven't had a chance to see these homes be sold, because this is truly something that is happening as we speak. But we're really excited about this project, about the project we did with the family shelter before that. And honestly, we're just very excited about statewide affordable housing aid as a tool in our tool belt. It is the flexibility of it is amazing. The simplicity of it is wonderful. And so when we look at how are we able to do more, and how are we able to hit the different needs of the continuum, we are really grateful for this source and feel very blessed that we have been able to utilize it. And from there, I will stop sharing my screen and probably turn it back over to Margaret.
Great. Thank you so much. So we're going to kind of move geographically from Olmsted County to Brooklyn Park. John, do you want to talk a little bit about the work that your community is doing?
Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I'm running late here. Lots of traffic on 169. But my name is John Kinara. I work for the City of Brooklyn Park and the housing and economic development field. And so that's where we are. I'm trying to get my slides here to share. Let me see. Am I sharing my slides?
You are, yes.
Okay, sounds good. So let's jump right into it. So just a little overview about the local affordable housing aid for the City of Brooklyn Park. So we all know these are funds allocated by the state through the Metro Sales Tax. And City of Brooklyn Park, we receive annually about 942,000, and all these funds are housed within our local housing trust fund account that we established last year. And so in terms of how we decided as a city to use these funds, we kind of split it in two on a 50% basis. And so we have two programs here. We have the NOAA Preservation Program that focuses on reinvesting and preserving and maintaining existing multifamily affordable housing units. And then the other 50%, we do have a number of home ownership programs that include down payment assistance, home improvement loans, senior deferred, court correction. And so that's how we split to spend the money, because that's where there is a big need in the community. And most of you are familiar with Brooklyn Park. You know, most of our existing housing stock, especially south of 85th, was built 1950s, 1960s. So very aging housing stock, whether it's single family, whether it's multifamily, that need significant reinvestments. And so based on that need and those characteristics, we decided that those are the areas that we need additional resources deployed in order to improve the integrity, the safety, and the outlook of the neighborhoods in those areas. So some of the local needs we identified, we did a community impact assessment survey. We do these every 2 years, kind of to assess the need in the community and what people are thinking, what folks are looking. And this is some of the needs we have identified so far, and this could be a regional need as well. There's lack of adequate affordable housing opportunities. So in Brooklyn Park, for example, we have a concentration of multifamily housing on Zane Corridor, which is south of 85th. So many old apartment buildings that need significant resources. And so folks within the community feel that this need to spread affordable housing across the community, especially into North 85th. And based on those needs, we're working on that. We have a few developments that are going on in the northern corridor of the city, around 610 corridor there. We have affordable housing going up there. We have Takeda Landing, which is in phase 2 construction now. It's about 385 units of affordable housing, and that should be wrapped up in the next 2 months or so. And occupancy in phase 1 is going up. I mean, people are still moving in right now. And so there's a big need and there's a long waiting list. We just completed Testament Ridge on 85th Avenue. It's about 72 units as well. Before the building was completed, there was like 2,000 people on the waiting list. This is deeply affordable housing, 30% MI, 40% MI, and the need outstrips the supply that we have. And then need for mixed income housing and mixed use development. This is something very popular within our community. Folks want to live where they can shop, maybe a mixture, residential and commercial space within the same neighborhood with the same building. And so that's why we adopted the mixed income housing policy in 2017. And we have a few developments going on right now with those kind of characteristics. And looks like this is the model that's going to be the model for the future because it's very popular. I saw David talk about senior housing, affordable senior housing. It's a big need in our community as well. You do find a lot of seniors who own single family homes and now they're ready to sell and move to a condo or a townhouse that's one level and something that is simple to take care of where they don't have to shovel the snow or mow the lawn. That's a big need in our community. And we're working with various developers who are interested in those kind of developments. It's work in progress, as you all know. Housing construction, new housing construction, especially in the current environment, it's very difficult. But, you know, nothing is possible. We keep on visioning, keep on working towards that goal. There's a need to protect, preserve, and maintain existing affordable housing because of our aging housing stock. And so working on deploying resources to upgrade our community in terms of providing low interest loans, grants, deferred loans to multifamily property owners, single family homeowners and all that townhouses to make sure that they are preserved and maintained. We did adopt the tenant notification ordinance in 2019. This is basically to protect our residents, especially in the multifamily housing communities, whereby you find this aging housing stock, developers come in, they want to buy it, remodel and kick out people, raise the rents. So we adopted this ordinance to protect such kind of transactions so that when a property is being sold, make sure that the city is notified, the residents are notified, and they're given ample notice if the rent is going to go up, if there are relocations that ensue because the rents have gone up or some screening criteria has changed by the new owner, then they have to be paid relocation assistance to seek residential accommodation elsewhere. So it's part of preserving, protecting, and maintaining existing affordable housing. And then we also have a need to ensure existing rental housing, especially, is well managed by property management companies. I know you're familiar with these. Not all property management companies do their job. So we want to work with them. We do have meetings with property managers. We have a rental coalition for property managers that we meet every quarter, meet with property managers from all multifamily housing communities in the city to make sure we're able to share needs, share resources, discuss the problems we have, and make sure that the residents in every community, they feel valued, feel supported, feel engaged, appreciated, so that, they can feel like they live in their home. And then, of course, there's need to create more employment opportunities, economic development. Yeah, Brooklyn Park, the median age is about 35%. We're a city of almost 90,000 people. It's a very young city. We have a lot of young people, and so they need jobs. They need jobs within where they live, and so that they're able to commute to work conveniently and take care of their families. There's a need for financial literacy, especially for first-time home buyers. We do that a lot. We work with CAPI, if you're familiar with that nonprofit organization, to make sure that new home buyers, they have the tools, financial knowledge they need in order to proceed with their investments. And so the needs that we identified, how does LAHA funds address those needs? So,
John,
yes.
I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. Because we are short on time, can you wrap this up in like a minute?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
So we are investing in housing, create jobs, improve property values, promote household and workforce stability, address housing insecurities, especially when it comes first-time home buyers with down payment assistance. That's a big deal in our community because not all the residents who are trying to buy a house can be approved 100% of the mortgage. So the gap that always remains, that's where the down payment assistance comes in to make sure we are able to support them to buy the home they need. I'll stop there and then I'll take any questions if there are any.
Great. So I think we're going to go ahead and have Madeline do her presentation about the work in Dakota County, and then we're going to circle back with questions for the whole group. How does that sound?
That sounds good to me.
Great. So up next, we have Madeline Kassler from Dakota County to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing.
Good morning. I'm going to get my screen shared here. All right. Double check that you can see my slides.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the invitation to present today on Dakota County's use of affordable housing aid funds. My name is Madeline Kassler, and I'm one of our deputy directors in our social services department. So a little bit about Dakota County for context. Dakota County is the third largest county by population in Minnesota. We have just over 450,000 residents, and we're a mix of urban, rural, and suburban. As is true across the state, the high cost of housing is one of our big problems in Dakota County and can be the cause for housing instability. And then for us, we know it's particularly true for renters, given that really short turnaround time from non-payment to an eviction action. 27% of our population rents, and of those renters, almost half are cost burdened. Just an overview of our affordable housing aid funds. In 2025, Dakota County received $223,000 in SAHA and $10.9 million in LAHA funds. All of our $23 and $24 went to Dakota County Social Services, and for 2025, our SAHA funds remain unallocated, and LAHA is split evenly between Dakota County CDA, or Community Development Agency, and Dakota County Social Services, which is what I represent. The Dakota County Board invests in 3 key housing areas generally: prevention, shelter, and housing stability. And this includes activities and services performed by both social services and the CDA. The Dakota County Affordable Housing Aid funds are invested in these predetermined areas, but we are focusing LAHA on prevention and housing stability in particular in these highlighted areas. For some of these areas, LAHA funds the entirety of that activity, and for others, LAHA is one of several sources. And just a little bit of additional explanation, our goal in using the LAHA funding in those bookend activities is to help as many people as possible either avoid that episode of homelessness or make homelessness as short as possible by ensuring there's a housing option on the other end of shelter. And we feel that this approach is the most impactful use of the state funds and can reach the most households. In 2025, approximately 27% of LAHA funds are dedicated to prevention activities. So in the prevention area, we focus on stopping housing crises and keeping people out of homelessness. Those are our goals. With this year's LAHA funds, we're funding a prevention services and navigation team, and this team works with people who are at risk of losing their housing. They administer emergency rental assistance, also funded with LAHA funds, and that's a really key part of their work. We're also funding our housing clinic services at eviction court. This housing clinic provides court navigation and legal services, and then up to 30 days of post-court case management. So we have 2 to 4 agencies at any given time at eviction court 3 days a week, helping people navigate that process and getting connected to services. The housing clinic team does send referrals back to that prevention services team to help access emergency rental assistance. And then finally, we're also funding services at apartment buildings throughout Dakota County with the goal of being a little bit more upstream. And so we can prevent that eventual crisis. And we have services at 15 senior buildings and 5 general population buildings. For housing stability, about 68% of our LAHA funds are dedicated to housing stability activities. And here we're focused on creating affordable housing opportunities, and in a lot of cases, pairing that housing with case management services to ensure that long-term stability. We fund programs to help families in particular move out of shelter into housing. We're using LAHA funds to support services at our 3 permanent supportive housing buildings in Dakota County. We have 1 for families, 1 for singles, and 1 for youth. And the Dakota County CDA is providing capital financing for new construction and to help preserve existing affordable housing. And they're also providing home improvement loans. I have two quick slides about impact of our LAHA investments. The first is the housing clinic services at eviction court. This slide is comparing those served by housing clinic, which is on the bottom, and those not served on the top. And as you can see from this graphic, 82% of housing clinic cases are settled through eviction court versus 41% of those not served by housing clinic. So this success would not happen. In fact, this program wouldn't exist without LAHA funds and without a direct link back to our LAHA funded prevention services team and our LAHA funded emergency rental assistance. So this is really a 100% LAHA funded activity that that has a really big impact for families or for households. And then finally, this slide shows some of the person by person impact through some thank you notes that come to our prevention services team. And for me, it's important for me to remind myself when talking about policy and dollars that at the end of the day, our job is to serve people in real crisis moments. And this funding has a real impact for those people. So thank you. I'll turn it back to Margaret.
Well, thanks. So we have a bunch of questions in the chat, some of them directed to specific people. But before I launch into that, one question for all of our panelists, and that is, one of the things that I think has been perceived as both a strength and a challenge of the SAHA-LAHA program is the local control. And local control serving local needs. But on the other hand, there's been some critique that, especially for smaller jurisdictions, it's a fairly small amount of money and it's not enough to do, say, a development. So would love to hear from folks about some of your concerns about that or why that local control is really important to you. And I'm going to start with David, just because, you're in the SAHA bucket, which is a fairly small amount of money.
Yeah, I appreciate that question because I think it's very accurate, is that a lot of people are, this is a great tool and they wonder, but, for us in Olmsted County, we got $108,000 and, I think we're the 7th largest county. So when you start to think about, how much funding any one entity gets, how do we make the most of it? I think the fact that the funding itself is very flexible allows us to maximize the impact of it. And that's why we've tried to choose some different examples locally for us that, hey, this funding can be for assisting families experiencing homelessness. This same funding, this same pot can be used to help create single family home ownership options. So what we want to do is help counties and cities across Minnesota understand just how valuable this is and how wonderful of a resource it is, how easy it is to use. We understand the challenges of kind of how do you document that, right? Because it can be everything from soup to nuts and everything in between. So how do you know if you were successful? And I think that is a real challenge of trying to, create at least maybe a few buckets in which we could try to create some overarching kind of metrics to say, hey, here's the value and the impact and the leverage of that funding. But for me, I think those are the reasons why I appreciate this so much, is that it allows for all of those things to happen. It allows for local counties and cities and jurisdictions to look to see what's the pressing needs in the community today and understand that those needs change over time and to address them.
John or Madeline, talk a little bit about why that local control versus more of a pooled approach is important for you.
Yes, very good question. Yeah, local control enables local municipalities to have that flexibility in terms of deploying financial resources for the specifically identified local needs. So we can address those needs in real time and we have a pulse of what's happening on the ground and kind of be able to determine how much we can deploy here, how much we can deploy there, and keep moving forward with our work. The one challenge we have, especially with the LAHA funding, is the amount. 942,000 is not a lot in the universe of construction. For example, working with developers who are looking for some gap financing, that can barely make a dent. So someone needs a gap financing of about 2 point something million. So we have 942, we're dividing between two programs. There isn't enough to allocate to new construction development. And so we have this strategy of because we have 3 years to expand these funds, so we can build up our reserves over the next 3 years before we can partner with a developer to use that funding. So that's the challenge. It's not enough, but it's better to have little than nothing. And so the other thing is we explored about using rental assistance program. Rental assistance is very expensive. The need is so huge. During the CARES funding, we spent about 650,000 within 2 weeks. And so we figured we can't use LAH fund for that because it simply won't be enough based on the need we have in the community. And so it's a good resource, but still very minimal, if you will.
You want me to jump in, Margaret?
Sure, go ahead.
Right. So I think this has been said already, but the affordable housing aid funds are a true game changer for us in Dakota County. Most of the programs that we're now funding were either funded through COVID dollars and would have had to shut down. So basically all of our prevention activity, or were concepts that we wanted to fund but couldn't without funding. That local control, as has been said, is really key to that. That flexibility is really important. We can move funding around, respond to needs, respond when different funding comes online or goes away. So just being able to be really nimble with the funds is really super helpful locally. We also can try creative things, which I think is important. Within the limits of the statute, there's a lot of creativity that can be had there. And so the chance to just get to test out concepts and see what work, or fun concepts that we've tested out before that are maybe a little bit not the normal thing that the state funds, is really important. So I think if this came with additional rules, I think we would still be grateful for the money, but I think with the rules being within the statute only, I think it's tremendously helpful locally.
So one really quick question, you just need a 2-word answer. Loans or grants for the capital funds? And I think that was for John and Madeline. I know David had already said loans.
I'll have to defer to my CDA partners. I don't know if anybody's online here, how they structure, because they do all the capital financing. So if I can get an answer from them real quick, I'll throw in the chat.
So we do both. We do loans and grants. Yes, depending on the developer. And for homeowners, some of the programs, they're grants, some they're deferred, some they're low interest loan, and the interest rate ranges between 0% to 3%. Yeah, for a term of 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. So kind of coming back to this issue of sort of it's such a powerful tool to have and sometimes a fairly modest amount of money. Has there been any sort of either formal or informal coordination across your adjacent jurisdictions or for cities, with your county about how you're utilizing funds, or has it been primarily we're going to focus in our geography and really make that very, very local determination?
Yeah, I can give the example here in Olmsted County. We're blessed to have the Coalition for Rochester Area Housing. It's a collaborative that has the City of Rochester, Olmsted County, the Rochester Area Foundation, Mayo Clinic, and Destination Medical Center all kind of around the same table. And so as we talk about these big picture items and we try to slot dollars for the best use, we can do that together and have these conversations to really highlight what is the best way to utilize a dollar? What are the outcomes that we're looking for? And then collectively, we have community priorities to make sure that all of the work that we're doing is aligning with those.
So I'll jump in. Yeah, we do collaborate with Hennepin County on how we deploy these resources because especially for developer financing, there's some that, go to the county for funding, come to the city. And so we try to collaborate around these areas to determine what kind of project we can fund so they can move forward and pending the level of funding. Otherwise, most of the dollars, the needs are determined locally, administered locally, and a lot of work at the local level.
The Dakota County CDA has met with most of the cities in Dakota County who have received their own allocations of LAHA and SAHA to talk about city affordable housing aid funds and how the CDA can offer some of their established development tools to create some efficiencies for cities. So that level of partnership has happened primarily through our CDA. And then overall, there's been a lot of discussion with our local partners about different ways that everybody's using the funds, just get a sense of what direction people are going in, and a lot of sharing about how different jurisdictions were interpreting statute language and use of funds.
So another question that's come up a couple of times in the chat is, for each of your jurisdictions, how are you engaging and involving people in the community in how you're prioritizing and how you're choosing what to utilize these funds for?
For the city of Brooklyn Park, this was prior done before we got any of this LAHA funding. And so we did a community impact assessment survey, kind of to gauge the needs of residents in the community. That's how we identified on how to spend this money. We did some focused surveys where we invited specific number of residents and talked to them during our homeowner workshops, HOA workshops, and we talked to the residents on the ground and find out what the needs are. We do have our code enforcement officials going to do inspections in the neighborhood. They're the source of information as well, so they provide us with the needs in the neighborhoods based on their inspection reports. And so gathering all that information together, we were able to determine this is where the needs are, and this is how we're going to deploy our resources. And that's how we are proceeding forward, deliberately.
We at Dakota County, we used our housing plan framework, which I had on the screen with prevention, shelter, and housing stability. And developing that framework involved a large process with our board and our partners in our community. And we don't have a regular schedule for re-upping that, but so far it's happened every 3 to 4 years. So that's a larger process, and then we can feed our decision making around different funding sources into that framework.
Yeah, and I'd say the same in Olmsted County. I think as we create our priorities, it's really based off of what we're hearing in the community, surveys that are being done in the community, whether that's the city, the county, bringing all of those things into the greater conversation, understanding the market itself and the numbers, and then kind of bringing all the pieces of the puzzle together to say, not only how do we help people across the continuum, but again, I think it's, this is one tool in a very large tool belt. So, what we might be talking about here works for a certain type of product or a certain type of funding, but then really trying to find housing across the continuum and services that help people from homelessness to home ownership. And that's what we're really trying to do.
Yeah. So we got a really interesting question in the chat from Miranda talking about utilizing some of the funds. And she said, as an emerging developer who has been awarded generous LAHA funds in response to Ramsey County solicitation, we're hitting a bump in the road due to not being able to assume the existing low interest loan with it being a Freddie. Must have high net worth / liquidity. Financing has been difficult due to project gaps created by how the LAHA funds are being recorded by the county. I don't know, Miranda, if you want to just really briefly kind of provide a little bit more context, and would love to sort of hear from a mechanics standpoint how folks, jurisdictions who are using this for project financing are trying to overcome some of these types of barriers.
Yes, thank you. So we are currently having ongoing conversations, and this is an active bump in the road. But we were awarded LAHA funds in response to the solicitation of Ramsey County, which we are grateful for. And this is to preserve 16 units that are currently not, there's no restrictions on them, but the rents are low. We want to keep it at 50% AMI, and with these funds, we are hitting a bump in the road because of how the FDIC, like the standard support, the banks that support the emerging developers are recording the funds. So I'm also just curious if I do know that they have like discretion to change how they record it, but also while managing the risk. You don't want to just give the money and not have that locked in. But my understanding is there is a way to put I'm forgetting my words, but there's a specific kind of lien you can put on the property, whether the developer sells it or not, basically allowing both parties to win and the community to win by having these homes available.
Is there like a clause in the contract for in case something goes wrong or they change companies or ownership or property, then it falls back into a certain agreement, possibly? Is that?
We are happy to do all the above. It's just a matter of getting through the conversations and all of that. But I'm hoping that there is a way to meet each other in the middle. So just curious how other counties are handling that or if they're running into the same issues.
I can maybe speak a little to this philosophically, I think, from the perspective that we have as a county in working with different builders and developers. We know that we are responsible for every public dollar that comes through our system. But what we also try to do, at least, here, I think our philosophy is what is the minimum amount of regulation that we need to do in order to get the product that we want. And so every project, you kind of do that evaluation a little bit to figure out, okay, how do we make this work? What are the minimum number of strings attached to the funding? Because that was one of our founding principles as kind of a local housing coalition, was really trying to do projects and eliminate strings for those smaller projects, maybe those more innovative projects, the things that just would never get funding probably from Minnesota Housing, which is not bad at all because there's a huge need there, but there's also some of these more grassroots projects and whatnot that just don't quite fit. And so for us, it's about finding different tools in our tool belt. Now, this is one where different communities are going to look at it differently. And of course, we're not a LAHA entity. We're just kind of the SAHA, and it's a much smaller pot. But I know, the one thing we do though is we reimburse. So like for us, we're reimbursing for work that's done. So at the end of the day, when I talked about kind of the single family homework that's done, hey, we know that there is a house built, that we have paid so much for, and we're not fronting any money. So we don't have any real concerns about whether that work is done. We know there's building codes. We know that it's done well. But I think then for us, it's like, if we know that in that case, what kinds of regulatory barriers do we need on top of that? What are the outcomes that we're looking for? And how do we get that with the least amount of strings? And so anytime we do a project, that's the conversation we're having, because we also do the work too. And we know that when you have 8 different funding sources with 8 different sets of rules, it makes progress very difficult.
This sounds like it would be a really fascinating topic for much further exploration as well, too. And I think one of the things, we could think about is, as we get more survey results, maybe there's a really good opportunity to delve into some of this with different jurisdictions and look at their approaches. One other question that I have for folks, and that is, as you're thinking about the use of SAHA and LAHA funding, to what extent, if at all, are the recommendations impacted by some of the potential changes for federal funding in particular, and also for state funding as well, too? Is that influencing your decisions or not? How are you thinking about that for future planning?
So this is an interesting question, because the potential changes at the federal level are so enormous that that it would leave service gaps and resource gaps larger than LAHA is going to solve for. So because of that, we haven't made any decisions to pivot any of our funding anywhere else. Now, that said, I think as things shake out, it's going to be important for us to have some discussions locally about, here's this new set of needs, and what do we want to do, and how do we respond? And something would have to give at that point. So we would have to sacrifice some of the other programming that I talked about earlier in order to meet different needs. But like we've said, that's kind of the benefit of LAHA, is that we can respond to those pressing needs when they come our way. So I think Rebecca Bowers from my staff included some other ways that we do some local engagement through our Affordable Housing Coalition. And we would use those groups and our other partners and community members to help us figure that out.
Great. Well, really sad to cut off what has been, I think, a really important discussion. I'm super excited to hear about the things that people are working on, but we have run out of time. I want to thank, first of all of our panelists for being here. I also want to thank everybody for being here to be part of the discussion, and everybody who has responded to the survey about use of SAHA and LAHA funding. As I mentioned earlier, we will be sending out sort of a chart that describes the different ways that jurisdictions are using this. And once again, thank you very much to everybody for your time. And it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.